Hello, everyone, and book lovers alike. Welcome to another author interview here in Reader's Magnet. We're streaming live in our Reader's Magnet Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to be updated. Today, we have one of our featured author, Mark Allen Haddad, author of The Shadow of the Staff, Wizard's Revenge. Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you today?
That's good. That's good. I'm great. Thank you for asking. So let's start with your book. Can you show it to everyone?
Sure, sure. Try to
All right.
cut down on glare a little bit and get it set in here a little bit.
Mm-hmm. All right. There you go. Very awesome cover.
Yep.
And that's the book too, right?
This is book one. You can tell
Book
by
one.
the one on the
Okay.
spine.
That's
And
good.
then the
That's good.
paperback's the exact same cover and has the number on the spine and everything. And the next
Perfect.
book will have a two and so on and so forth.
All
So,
right. Awesome. Very strategic. Very strategic. So I wanted to know what is the significance of the title, The Shadow of the Staff, A Wizard's Revenge?
well, it boils down to the the basic premise, I guess, for lack of a better term, is there was a group that broke the staff of power of a wizard, and more wizards years, like 2,500 years later. One of them showed up and was not a nice guy, and so he wanted revenge on the last of the surviving members that destroyed the
Mhm.
staff, and that's what the story is based on. And so it's like
Wow.
a big coming of age adventure as they go through their magical land and that type of thing. So it's kind of a fun book to read, I think. But that's always up to the reader what they like or don't like. So
Definitely, it is. Everyone loves adventure. Everyone wants to escape reality, and I'm sure your book will definitely do its job to make everyone feel like they're part of the adventure and the world that you created. So, I'm sure they'll enjoy reading that. And when you were writing the book, what did you learn in yourself? What did you discover?
well, I started out where I wanted to write basically a book that was a follow up to the Lord of the Rings series. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but because of copyrights and all sorts of legal things, I couldn't go through with it that way. So I wound up then having to use my own imagination a lot more. And it really did make me a better author, I think, as I went through the book. And I really believe that it shows up toward the end of the book that I've grown much like the character does, because I decided at that point to start breaking away from the Lord of the Rings story of trying to follow that particular path. And so I created my own path, and it made my own um, curiosities, my own beliefs. There's quite a bit of things in there that I think are relative and relevant in today's world. Um, they have quite a few conversations about war and economies and all sorts of things that we all deal with every day, but it gives you a viewpoint that's different than what we see on the news and what we hear in the newspapers and all that kind of stuff. So it really made me look inside myself a lot to use my own imagination to create a world that hadn't been created yet. So it was kind of neat to use a blank sheet of paper, as it were, and come up with something that would be enjoyable and fun to read, and yet have adventure and mystery and magic and all of the things that people seem to really enjoy. I know I do. So
I'm
I hope
sure.
people do.
Well, you enjoyed writing it, and I'm sure a lot of people who's gonna buy the book will definitely enjoy reading it. It's like you said, it's something out of this world, and it's something that you created out of your passion and your love about writing and the fantasy world. So definitely people will be curious and find it interesting to read. So I wanted to know, how did you select the names of your characters?
Well, some of them are based on places that I live, streets or whatever. So I just kind of embellished on those type of things. But the majority of the naming of the characters is just out of my own head and what I thought a character would be named or what their name would be if they were here today, like if they would be a Bob or whatever the name may be. But it was really just my imagination and my own um trying to follow a path, I guess, so that as the book went along it would make sense and the
Mhm.
names would make sense, and you could read them and go, oh well, that's a dwarf, or that's an elf, or that's a man. You could tell by
Mhm.
the names.
Wow, that's a good way to do it. And are the names based on someone you know? Are they, um, is someone you know personally? Are they based or are they from your grandkids?
No, they're really not um based upon anybody that I would know as far as name wise or anything. They're just names that I made up that I thought sounded like they would be that type of a character. If they're a main character, they have stronger names,
Mm-hmm.
um, such as Lindaloria, which is
Mm-hmm.
the Elf Lord and his daughter. So
Wow.
their names are quite a bit, but yet Lindaloria is more feminine than Mindaloria. So I
Mm-hmm.
tried to follow a pattern along those lines when using names. And then you get into the dwarf names and the main character's name. And, so you start knowing like Burton Brew is the main character. So
Mm-hmm.
that name is, you know, just, it sounds like he's just a guy, and that's what I wanted. Was I wanted them to be just a guy, and then as he goes through and finds out that he has unknown powers that he you know was totally unaware of,
Mm-hmm.
then his name kind of goes with that, and he becomes Master Brew and Mister,
Mm-hmm.
and they come up with different names throughout the book to address him. um, some of them call him the Brew, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's all how they address the characters, and I just tried to make it sound that they would fit into the storyline, which I think is the most important thing in any writing, is following a storyline and having it make sense. Um,
I agree. Yeah, it's I believe that you have a very interesting way, I'd say, or of creating names. You base it on the personality of your characters. So it's something unique. Other people base the names of their characters on their grandkids or someone they love, their wife, husband. So your way of naming your characters are definitely out of this world, as I can say.
yeah,
So yeah, good job with that. Good job with that. So for those who are watching us live, you can grab a copy of Mark's book, The Shadow of the Staff, A Wizard's Revenge, available in Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and in his website, www.mahaddadnovels.com. Follow him on Facebook and other social media platforms as well. So now, Mark, um, what do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused, given that you wrote two books already?
the focus part at times can be difficult. I think it's probably the hardest thing for a writer is to maintain that focus, but I've pretty much got the story already written in my head before I sit down and start putting it on paper or typing it or whatever. Um, it's bringing it all together, and I think that's the fun part. So one book leads to the next book that leads to the next book that leads to the next book, and it's a continual story that goes on, and you bring along new characters. Some characters depart, um, but I think as long as you realize that your focus has to be on maintaining that story. So I have to every now and then go back and actually look at the first book and go, what did I do in this situation? Because now in the second book, I don't want to contradict something, but I have left open ends, as it were. And there's things that the reader is going to look at as they go through and go, that's kind of strange. Well, that's supposed to be. Um, if it doesn't trip some sort of interest to a reader, then to me that's you've already lost your focus if you can't put that on paper. So that's
Exactly.
where I feel you got to work hard at it.
I agree. You know, you have to make sure that there's continuity on your storyline, because people will lose interest in reading the book if they found that it went somewhere else instead of, it should be like this. So you have to make sure that everything is connected with your story. So
Yeah,
that's
there is a part of it that's really fun to go out on a limb, and yeah, there's things that all of a sudden you go, wow, why did it go there? Well, you may not find out until the next book why it went there. And
I
again,
agree.
that's the mystery and the fun of an adventure story. If
Definitely.
everything's all
Mhm.
lined out all the time, it's kind of a boring story. So you got to have different things in there that are twist or make people go, well, I thought they were in the country. Now all of a sudden they're in a bunch of rocks. How can this be? Well,
I agree.
you go back and you describe the area later and what the country
Yes,
looks like.
definitely.
Things
Make
like
them
that.
wonder. Yes, make them wonder on what's gonna happen next. That will make them, flip the page to discover more. I agree to that. And I wanted to, I'm just curious, what is your favorite part in your book or in the story?
Oh wow. Um, I think probably my favorite part is there's a part in the book where they're just roaming the countryside, and it's him and his great wolves, which are just two huge lovable puppies basically, but they're huge wolves, and
Hmm.
they're given to him by a wizard to help protect him. And they're kind of going through the countryside, and the wolves run off to do something, so he's by himself, and he finds a beat up old abandoned house, and he goes in and he's exploring, and while he's in there, a group of orcs come along and come into the house as well, so he has to hide. And that's my favorite part of the book because of what happens after that, where you know somebody unexpected shows up,
Hmm.
things he basically gets saved, but it turns into a real moment for him, and that's when he first really starts, I think, to show that he's growing as an individual as well as with his powers, but he's growing as a person.
Wow, that's a very interesting part of the story. Well, I'm definitely sure that everyone will be looking out for that scene as well. Those who are planning to buy the book, they're
Yeah,
gonna definitely. So, would you and your main character get along, given that you specifically wrote them in a specific way to fit in the story?
oh yeah, definitely, definitely. He would be a very good friend. Um, and he's that way, period. He's a little bit naive in the beginning, and as he goes through, he loses some of that, but he never loses his sense of wonder at things. And so you know much like the Hobbit, he just lived in his area all by himself in their little town that they have, and in his little part of the world, and then he goes out and finds out that there's a lot more world out there and a lot more wonder and adventure, and that would make him a very good person to be around, and it would make him a good friend of mine.
Wow. I think so. I think so. I mean, if you wrote a character, I believe that, you are giving a part of yourself to them so that, you can see them grow, and it feels like you kind of know them already. You give them like they can decide based on how you want the story. So I think that's a pretty good way to, make a connection to your character, make
Yeah,
them your friend.
it's really a lot of fun to write different characters as well because um, there's a piece I think of every writer that goes into a character, and that character may be flawed. That character may be mean. They may not be a good guy, but you have to draw on life experiences and things that you know that make sense in creating that character. And that is both a challenge and a lot of fun.
I believe so. I believe so. And before we wrap this up, I wanted to know, how would you describe your book's ideal reader, your target audience?
I would say that it's a fantasy adventure novel, and um, it takes you to another world. It's That's the whole purpose, to escape from reality for a while and get into the pages of a book and try to get wrapped up in the book to the point where you feel like you're walking down the trail with the characters,
Mhm.
and you start to root for certain characters and root against other characters, and that is the fun to me of a good book, when you can pull all that together and make that happen.
Right. So someone who's planning to buy the book should have a wild imagination to be able to follow that adventure that you have it in your book.
Yeah, I believe so because you can't always make every character based on you.
Yes.
Um, you at times have to reach beyond yourself and think like somebody else and say, okay, like the evil wizard, why is he evil? What's his story? What's his background?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? And, in my case, my wizard's a little bit twisted, and he's almost on the edge of insanity, to be honest. So he'll switch from being a nice guy to being a jerk in one sentence, and that's hard to write
I
because most people aren't like that. They don't, you don't have a personal experience to pull on there. You just kind of got to guess, okay, this is the way I want the character to go. So that's how you have to write it.
Yes, I agree. You have to be witty enough to make that switch right away. So definitely, it should be someone as imaginative as you are. And thank you so much, Mark. It was a very enjoyable discussion about your book. Thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, anytime. There you go, everyone. Mark Allen Haddad, author of The Shadow of the Staff, A Wizard's Revenge. You can grab a copy of Mark's book, available in Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and in his website, www.mahaddadnovels.com. Follow him in his Facebook and other social media platform as well. Again, Mark, thank you for the time and for being with us today. And as we say it here in Reader's Magnet, we share your story with the world. Good day, everyone.